Hello everyone, this is part 2 in a series of videos that I've been doing on Asperger's and ways that I have coped with having it throughout the years. I'm sorry I didn't post this video a little earlier. I try to post a video every week, but sometimes things get in the way, and I had a visitor uh, last weekend, so I didn't get a chance to really do anything. But from now on I'll try to post a video every week to the best of my ability. But yeah, the last video was about acting as a way to cope with having Asperger's syndrome and not really being able to understand the social world that well. And today's video is going to be about another way of coping, which is escape. More specifically, escape into imagination. And that's something I did throughout childhood and into adolescence. And I still do it sometimes. My imagination can run a bit wild, but yeah, like I read somewhere that uh, Aspies tend not to have a good imagination or something like that, and I think that's just bogus because, you know, I don't think having Asperger's syndrome can really inhibit creative thinking. I mean, I've seen plenty of Aspies who, just on the internet, who are creative individuals, and you know, I consider myself fairly creative, probably more so than a lot of my peers, but you know, having Asperger's syndrome, I think that it almost sort of fostered that creativity because, you know, I wasn't engaged in just normal routine tasks all the time, not having friends, uh, or not having, you know, a big group of people to hang out with throughout the years. Uh, lends itself to finding more creative ways of, you know, finding amusement, and, you know, I found that the arts can, you know, really do that, you know, to an extent. So anyway, going back to childhood, you know, I started with just having imaginary friends, which is something that, you know, a lot of kids have, but I had imaginary friends for quite a while. I would make up these characters, and they would, you know, they would be my companions for just like years. I mean, I can't even remember how long I had them, but you know, they were my friends through thick and thin, you know, and there all the time, even when I was alone. So, you know, imaginary friends, I don't think it's, you know, a bad thing to have them, but, you know, as long as it doesn't uh, sort of bleed in over into your reality and distort your perception of reality, which, you know, it never did for me. I've actually never even told anybody about it until, you know, this video. But you know, I had imaginary friends probably all through elementary school and into middle school, so, you know, I don't know if that's common in other people, but it was certainly a way of coping for me, because, you know, I mentioned in another video, my class was really small, so I didn't really have many opportunities to meet a whole lot of people. Um, and another thing I did, which is also normal in children, is pretend play, which, you know, I distinctly remember 4th and 5th grade, you know, running around on the playground and, you know, being a Power Ranger or something else. And, you know, again, I know that's normal, um, but for me, it was like a way of just escaping from myself, becoming the hero. I mentioned in, I think, the last video that I tended to relate a lot to fictional type characters, um, you know, fictional heroes, and I guess in my mind I would sort of become that hero, um, you know, saving the world, and, you know, but, yeah, and on a similar note, something I did that's, you know, kind of interesting, and I'm not sure if other people have done this, but whenever I was faced with, you know, a challenge or task or something in my life that brought me a lot of anxiety, I tended to sort of take this challenge and manifest it in my head into a sort of like fictional opposing force, like, you know, some evil supervillain. Here's a good example. Whenever I tested for I forgot which belt when I was taking Taekwondo, I was scared as hell. And one thing that I sort of found myself doing was sort of envisioning myself as kind of a hero, and you know, the only way I could save the world was to you know, pass my karate test and get my belt. And you know, if I didn't get the belt, then this evil supervillain would win, and you know, the world would be enslaved. I can't remember if I actually got the belt or not, but eventually I did. I am a black belt, but you know, I definitely remember. I don't remember a whole lot about taking Taekwondo, but for some reason I do remember, you know, ways that I coped with being nervous about, you know, sparring and testing, breaking boards and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, just kind of an interesting take on things, and I'm interested to know if anybody else ever did that growing up, because, you know, my mind was always just kind of, you know, in its own little world where I was, you know, the hero and had to face some killer opposing force, you know, that nobody else could see and that only I knew about. But as I moved into middle school and into high school, it was almost like, you know, those days of, you know, imagining myself as a hero kind of shifted into imagining myself having the life that I wanted. And I sort of thought of this as maybe a fictional utopia. And, you know, again, I haven't told anyone this until this video, so you're the first ones to know about this. But, you know, like my early high school years, as a way of calming myself down, I would sort of let myself drift off into this world that I envisioned as perfect. You know, a world where I had friends and I had a girlfriend, and, you know, the things that I wanted to do in life, I was doing. And, you know, I sort of nicknamed it Utopia because that's really what it was in my head. It was a utopia. And I think for a couple of years, like every night before I went to bed, I would put on some kind of music and just kind of drift off into this, you know, fictional world of mine before I went to sleep. And maybe I hoped I would have a dream about it, but yeah, and it worked to an extent, you know, for, you know, however long that was. It was like emotionally it was a break from the rest of my day, and I didn't have that horrible, you know, depressed feeling during the day. Uh, or I did have it during the day, but during those moments when I was in this world, I was free from it, and, you know, it felt nice to be able to experience that kind of, you know, release and freedom from, I guess, the routine day-to-day lives that, you know, we all have to live. But yeah, those are pretty much ways that I guess I escaped or tried to escape, you know, problems that I had. And this was way before I was diagnosed. Like I said, I was only diagnosed a few months ago with Asperger syndrome, but, you know, and I read a book about Asperger syndrome, and it described, you know, things that I just explained in this video, and again, I was floored because I thought that it was just something exclusive to me. So I'm interested in hearing feedback. Have there been any ways that you've tried to escape, you know, daily lives through imagination, or, you know, inventing worlds, or envisioning yourself as maybe a hero, or creating sort of fictional villains out of your problems. Yeah, I'm interested to hear that, and the next video is going to be the final part in this series, and it'll be about isolation, which is another way for Aspies to cope. So until then, I'm interested in hearing your comments, and I'll see you next time.